Hello and welcome to Network. My name is Pamela Zondi with your technology and social media news. It is SABC Network on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. News Network at sabc.co.za on email. This week, our Twitter poll is asking you about the amount of time you spend on social media networks. Results of that are coming up later in the program. Here's what's coming up in this program. As Huawei has been trying to pick up the pieces after their problems in America, we find out that they have a few more problems now here in South Africa and in other parts of the world as well. We go to Kenya to find out about Africa Podcast Day. And in our conversation, we chat about what government can do in order to limit the number of outages of their platforms and websites. This, as when we tried to go on their platforms a couple of days ago, we found out that we couldn't. Over the last 2 years, Huawei has been hurt badly by their problems in the United States of America. This affected them in the rest of the world as well. But they pushed on despite the fact that they didn't have access and support for the Android operating system, which is owned by American Google. They did release quite a number of Nova devices in the year 2021 and at the start of the year 2022. This was here in South Africa. But now it seems like they're facing problems in South Africa as well. It was in 2020 that Huawei lost Android support in their devices. This was the beginning of when the Chinese tech giant was being cut off from working with a number of American companies. Losing Android support has meant they had to fight hard to convince Android users that they could still be their choice if they want devices. They launched their Harmony operating system, but the work to get many to switch over has been tough. They also had to convince many countries to continue trusting their software and 5G products. In August 2021, they reported their biggest ever revenue drop. Recently, there were reports that their smartphone sales had placed them at number 2 in South Africa, behind Samsung. In 2021, they focused on releasing their Nova devices, which are targeted at the youth market that can't quite afford the P and Mate series, which costs tens of thousands of rand.
In the Nova series, you will find a lot of flagship experiences like the 66-watt supercharging capability, incredible screens, incredible battery life, great cameras for all scenarios, whether you are taking selfies, you're taking low-light photographs.
Their celebrity-filled events would ensure that they trend on the night of the release. They're facing new trouble again, this time in South Africa. The Labour Department here at home isn't happy that their workforce is close to 90% foreign nationals. The country's laws don't allow any company to have over 40% foreign workforce, as one HR expert explains.
What you are allowed to do is come with a training visa so that you can use those 3 years to then train your workforce up.
The documents filed by the government in court suggest that Huawei's top management positions in South Africa are all held by foreign nationals. Huawei has not publicly made any statements on this. They were to hold a media launch of a smartwatch in Sandton this past Thursday, but since reports of their troubles with the government, that launch was also postponed. What's likely to happen is a hefty fine, as has been done with other organizations that mostly hire foreign nationals in the past.
Unemployment is such a problem in our country, and it's such a drastic problem. It's such a blight on our country, and I don't think that they should. And I think the Department of Labour is right to take such a hard line on companies who come in from other countries and don't hire local workers. I think that they shouldn't avoid it, and I don't think they should be allowed to avoid it.
In India, Huawei's offices have been searched by that country's law enforcement authorities. Reports say they've launched a tax evasion investigation there. There's been huge growth in the gaming sector. This has been aided by the COVID-19 pandemic, as a lot of people were sitting at home and playing a lot of video games. But video games consoles have also been hurt as well because of that microchip shortage that we told you about in a previous program. But the gaming industry is also growing here in South Africa, as you are finding more developers who are finding spaces for more funding.
Africa's new obsession is mobile gaming. What's even newer here are local content options. These are video games created by Africans for Africans. Take 24-year-old Wandile Matsebula, the developer of Dash and co-founder of Space Salad video game studio in Johannesburg. Matsebula and his team are using games to tell real stories about recycling in South African community.
So we made a game called Dash. It's about the street surfers or reclaimers that we see on the streets, the guys with the big trolleys. We made a game about them. We turned it into like a Need for Speed type of game. So that's firstly raising awareness to the people who don't know it, because they're like the original recyclers, the guys that do most of the recycling in South Africa. So we're teaching whoever's playing the game, the youth, about these guys and, giving them a better name out there.
They have now reached another level altogether.
So what we mainly focus on is making sure that the games we make and all the content we produce is top tier, really fun stuff to interact with, and that focusing on that will bring us closer to the people who are going to give us the money.
Zolo could compete with the very best in the industry, but there is one thing holding him back: funding.
I think the first challenge is money, because you need money to make the games, You need to eat, as much as we're doing it with passion, because we love it, we love games. At the end of the day, you're going to need to make money.
Despite the setbacks, Silicon Valley accelerators such as Google are turning their attention to African startups. Cape Town-based games publisher Carry First secured funding from them.
The first thing is get one or more partners that are going to be in the trenches with you, that are going to grind and that complement you. I think the second is to really kind of be realistic about your ideas and pick things that are big, right? International investors are excited about the region, but they don't want to fund small ideas. They don't want to fund things that are single country. Their vision is, 1.3 billion people, what kind of massive scalable ideas.
Google says they hope the grants they have can also assist in growing South Africa's gaming industry.
And what this grant will help them achieve is they'll be able to invest in engineering, they'll be able to grow their teams, they'll be able to broaden their content portfolio and also attract more users. And gaming is a very popular thing around the world. It's actually the most watched content on YouTube. Globally, to give you a sense, there's about 2.5 billion gamers, and the industry itself is worth about $150 billion globally.
Some gaming startups enter competitions with the hopes to raise funds. Mtn App of the Year award searches for the brightest entrepreneurs with the smartest mobile phone applications. Last year's big winner here was an educational mobile game.
We've actually also now gone into a gaming app, so an app that doesn't need any additional books or any additional accessories, but you can literally download the app. We are able to use games to learn certain vocabulary in African languages. We've included some songs by adding things like stories and other lessons. So we've been able to sort of release that initial version, engage with our customers, engage with our users and see what it is they need. And we've been able to grow from there.
The organizers see the event as an opportunity to exemplify the immense potential the startup community has in Africa.
So as MTN, we have always reiterated that we believe that everyone deserves the benefits of a modern connected life. And this modern connected life manifests itself in multiple ways. But at the essence of all the ways that it manifests itself is the ability to digitally transform. And as MTN, we found that when we are sponsoring a platform like the App of the Year Awards, we are actually encouraging tech-savvy businesses to start new businesses for themselves and to fast-track the digital transformation of the country.
While in the past you would see gaming venues full of men, the personal nature of mobile devices means more women are also entering the gaming space now.
I think as females, we are moving in a time where females want to take power themselves. They feel they need a space and they need to be heard. So I'd say it's not a lot of us. Most definitely just a few females that I know, especially in South Africa, I would say.
Men are gatekeepers in the industry. They're the ones that own the esports teams. They're the ones that run the different companies within gaming. So I think from an entry point of view, they are the barrier, you know. Some gaming companies within the country, the marketing departments are run by females, some of the bigger companies, but from a ownership point of view, it's still very female-based.
As Africa is often said to be the only region where the youth population is going up, you can be sure to see the growth of this sector in massive numbers.
Let's head over to Kenya in East Africa now, where we're finding out about Africa Podcast Day.
Nairobi came alive on Saturday as African podcasters met to mark Africa Podcast Day, a day set aside to celebrate the continent's top podcasters as well as the upcoming ones.
What does podcasting mean for you?
The Africa Podfest, now in its third year, was once again held virtually to control the spread of COVID-19. That did not, however, dampen the mood of the event, as hundreds of African podcasters from Uganda, Sierra Leone, Nigeria, Ghana, Mozambique, Tanzania, South Africa, Kenya and Morocco, as well as those in the diaspora, followed and participated throughout the 12-hour event.
Africa Renewal Podcast launch!
The highlight of the Africa Podfest was the launch of the Africa Renewal Podcast, a production of the United Nations Department of Global Communications. In a research conducted last year, Josephine Karianjahe and Melissa Mbugwa, the founders of the Africa Podfest and the brains behind the Africa Podcast Day, found out that Africans are listening to African-produced podcasts for entertainment as well as information.
The three big powerhouses are Kenya, Nigeria, and South Africa. So we've also found that there are countries that are growing in podcasting, like Egypt, Zambia, and so on, who are actually growing their community and growing the podcasts that they're making.
The popularity of the podcast has been driven by increased smartphone ownership as well as a high rate of internet penetration on the continent.
It's structured in a system on the internet which is much freer, much more open to experimentation, much less regulated.
It's audio, it's very intimate, and it's a way for us to reach new audiences, more audiences in a very intimate way and very directly on topics that are very pertinent to Africa.
While English and French remain the main modes of creating podcasts, more and more people are podcasting in their local languages, according to the research.
Thank you so much for joining me.
It is SABC Network on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. After the break, we chat about what government can do to limit outages of their online platforms. It is SABC Network on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. News Network at sabc.co.za on email. Welcome back. Now, if you visited a couple of government websites a couple of days ago, you would have realized that they were down. We could be naming the Labour Department's website, perhaps the Presidency, and there were a number of others as well, including education. And sometimes you would find that when you are going to government offices to get some services done, you'd be told that the system is down. So what could be causing all of this to happen from time to time? To help us understand all of this is Themba Ndubane. He is with the Masana Group. Hello, and thank you very much for joining me, Themba. Maybe we can start by explaining to us what the problem would be when these government websites are down.
All right, so usually what would have happened in that situation is we would be experiencing what we call a fiber break. So a fiber break is when there's basically loss of transmission when it comes to the fiber network, which can be a means of communication to the internet for whatever company or entity that might be experiencing that fiber break. So usually what would cause a fiber break in most instances can be a number of things, and I'll just touch on three. The first one, it can be animals like rats, rodents, or any animals that can burrow underground. So they don't know that this is the internet cable, and they will easily chew on it, and that can easily affect or in fact result to a complete break. Sometimes it can also be weather, maybe when there's a flood or there's an earthquake or any other natural disaster. It can affect the cables in that the cables can break, and that would result in a fiber break. The other one can be vandalism. It can be people that see a fiber cable and they think it's a copper cable. They cut it out and dig it out, and later on realize that it is useless to them. But unfortunately, they will have cut out millions of people from having internet access.
Is there anything that the government can do in order to ensure that it happens less than it does at the moment?
Well, there's quite a number of things that government can do. Some of them are quite costly, and government has already implemented such, where they will have what we call layers of connection. So they'll have their primary connection, and they'll have their secondary, which is what they have right now. But sometimes, you need to have many other alternatives. Unfortunately, they then become expensive, because if you're running a fiber link, if that breaks, you should have backup, or what we call redundancy, in which case you can employ a microwave link, a wireless LAN link. There's a number of other options that can be explored. But unfortunately, all of these ones then become expensive, which means that the government would probably need to budget a bit better to be able to have these systems in place as a backup plan in the event that the fiber breaks.
You've touched on a pertinent issue, and that's the issue of fiber cable theft. And in South Africa, we have a lot of issues of cables in general being stolen. And these could also include copper cables. So what should the public know about this, and how can they be alerted to do better so we don't have these problems?
Well, one of the things that can be done, unfortunately, fiber is the fastest and most stable means of internet access at the moment. In fact, funny enough, the same fiber cables that we have that are laid underground, if you follow them all the way through, you'll find that they are actually even running underwater, connect us to different countries across the world. So the best thing that the government can do is to ensure that we create protected channels. So we'll have demarcated areas that are clearly laid out, and those ones will then be completely protected, so that when they reach to breakout points, even when there's vandalism or cable theft, we will know that it's not the entire area that is affected. Instead, it's just maybe a few pockets of areas that can be easily attended to. Obviously, that then means that current service providers, which most of them are private, would have to be in collaboration with government to ensure that they clearly mark out and lay out where most of their cable networks are running, and then reach an agreement with government as to how those areas are going to be protected. It is something that we can't run away from. Although we're now introducing 5G, which is part of wireless network, but it doesn't have guarantees, because it can also be easily affected by weather, and that can also reduce the quality of the network speed that you get in that kind of a connection. So personally, I think that would be the best way that government can be able to ensure that they partner with the private sector to deliver high class service, but that doesn't compromise on the user experience.
Themba, are there alternatives?
Yes and no. Yes, in a sense that obviously government is investing so much money into making sure that South Africa develops and catches up to the number of countries that are already developed. But, we need to also understand that South Africa is still classified as a third world country. If we look at the number of illiterate people in South Africa, the numbers are shocking, which means we still have a lot of people that, first of all, do not even appreciate the amount of work and effort that goes into even creating or providing internet infrastructure in the first place. So before government can even employ a lot of effort into trying to protect the existing infrastructure, I think most of it must go towards education.
All right, Themba Ndubane from the Masana Group, thank you very much for being a part of our network. It is SABC Network on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Stay with us. It's SABC Network on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Welcome back. Here's what else took place in the rest of the world in the technology space.
Right, left, and up and down. A brainwave-operated wheelchair is what this Egyptian researcher hopes will aid the physically disabled. Wearing a head unit attached to the chair, Abdelarman Omran can simply move his head in the direction he wishes, and the chair in turn can rotate up to 360 degrees.
في مشكلة كبيرة بتواجه مرضى الشلل الرباعي، وهي انهم غير قادرين على تحريك اطرافهم، وبالتالي هم مش قادرين ان هم يستخدموا الكراسي الكهربائية اللي هي موجودة في السوق، اللي هي بيتم التحكم فيها عن طريق الجويستيك او عصاية التحكم. ففكرة المشروع ان احنا نمكن مرضى الشلل الرباعي ان هم يستخدموا الكراسي دي عن طريق حركة الراس او اشارات المخ. ده يسهل لهم ان هم يتحكموا في الكراسي الكهربائية ويتحركوا بدون الحاجة من مساعدة حد يعني.
The project, which he has been working on since 2015, was taken up by the Arab Organization for Industrialization, who have helped him develop and prepare it for mass production, and now in the USA. The Texas Attorney General's office sued Facebook's parent Meta, alleging that the social media giant violated state privacy protections with facial recognition technology that collected the biometric data of millions of Texans without their consent. The lawsuit accuses Facebook of collecting the data from users' phones and videos, disclosing the information to others and failing to destroy it within a reasonable time. And now in China. Businesses at the Beijing Olympics are getting around the language barrier by using high-tech apps and a smartphone-like device to translate from Mandarin Chinese into various tongues to help keep the tills ringing.
Diese Apps funktionieren ehrlich gesagt überraschend gut, muss ich sagen. Man hat ja normalerweise eine Maske auf, dann haben die Chinesen oft noch so einen Gesichtsschutz davor. Dann sprechen sie hier rein, meistens ein bisschen verschämt und leise, aber die Übersetzung klappt eigentlich ganz gut. Zurück wird es manchmal ein bisschen schwieriger, habe ich das Gefühl. Also wir hatten einmal so eine Erfahrung, da wollten wir Kuhmilch und im Englischen Cow, verstanden als Husten, Cough. Das hat dann schon ein bisschen für Aufsehen gesorgt, weil man vor nichts hier so viel Angst hat wie vor Corona und Husten gehört ja zu einem der Symptome. Im Grunde funktioniert das ganz gut.
At the restaurant, non-Mandarin speakers use marker pens to highlight the dishes they want on the plastic menus, and verbal communication is done through a translation device.
Now, the Global Web Index says South Africans and Nigerians, and possibly Kenyans too, spend over 3 hours on social media. This is on average in a day. So we're asking you on our Twitter poll this week if you spend more time or less time than has been said by the index. 40% of those that responded to our poll say they spend more time than this. There's 33% in second place who say they spend less time, and a further 27% who have not thought about this. It's quite interesting that the majority of those that responded to our poll spend more than 3.5 hours on social media. And that's it. That's all we have for you. Find us on SABC Network on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. It's News Network at sabc.co.za on email. From me, Aspumelele Zondi, and the rest of the team. Have a good one.